40 minutos, uma seguida à outra, seguida de debate e respostas, perguntas e respostas. A primeira apresentação será de Filipe Fernandes, do Banco de Portugal, e a segunda de Silvia Zavagnin e de Jens Kühn, do Banco Central Europeu, todos arquivistas nas suas organizações. Portanto, agora em inglês, voltando a repetir. This meeting will be recorded, so if you do not authorize your video or your audio to be shared later, please turn off your audio and video. We also ask you to turn off the audio regardless, because this can make the presentations rather difficult to hear. So each session will be around 30 to 40 minutes, and then we will have a Q&A at the end of the session. And this is from 6 to 8. The first speaker is Filipe Fernandes from Bank of Portugal. And then we'll have Silvia Zavagnin and Jens Kühn from the ECB, the European Central Bank, joining us. So overall, the topic is EDRMS, so Electronic Documents Records Management System. And Filipe will talk in theory and adapting and integration, implementation. And Silvia and Jens will talk on a more practical perspective. So Filipe, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Inês. And thank you very much to Elio and to Bat for the invitation, for the opportunity to share our experience of the Banco de Portugal with our colleagues. I'll just ask you for a second while I organize my screens here. Am I sharing the presentation?
Yes, but it's not in full screen.
Not in full screen. Okay, so now I believe. Okay, so hello to you all. My name is Filipe Fernandes. I am the head of the archive unit of Banco de Portugal. We are the unit responsible for document management and for archive management for the historical archive in Banco de Portugal. And I am here to share with you our experience relaunching our EDRMS in Banco. Our history with document management systems starts in 1997. We had used from 1997 to 2010, the Banco had a system called GT-GDA, which was a Lotus Notes based document management system. It had no record management capabilities, and basically it would receive documents and manage some workflows between users from the bank, and they have some registry functionalities. Then in 2010, the bank integrated LiveLink, which is now Open Text Content Server, and we created the ad hoc system, which was working until 2021. Then from 2021 until now, we have our new system, also a open text content server, which is Documentos. And what I'm going to talk about is precisely this change from ad hoc to Documentos. So from two implementations of open text content server, starting for the reasons why we did it. As you can see in ad hoc, we had record management, we had workflows, business events, audit, record management, all the modules, the facilities. The limitations were that were regarding record management and retention periods management and the proper organization of documents in the system. And the reason for that is, although LiveLink had all the functionalities, during the implementation, we had some, end up creating some limitations. And this was the main problem and the main cause for that was that there was a general refusal from departments and in allowing our unit, so the bank record management managers, to have access to their folder structures. And as you can imagine, that is a major limitation, because it's very hard to impose organization and to monitorize organization on the document structures that you cannot see. So in this impossibility, we couldn't see the documents and when they were created, or the folder structures, so the organization that they were being created into. This led to increasing errors in RM classification application in the folders. There was very quickly a deviation from the functional logic that we are sought and that we had initially planned with the departments. They started organizing their documents as they see fit, and there was sequentially during the 12 years that it was in working, there was subsequent and constant changes in these organization logics, and very much depending from the people that were organizing the documentation. Also, there was generally a failing to trigger the system. The way it was implemented was dependent on users, departments to close the document folders in order for the retention schedule to start progressing and to start being counted. And there was a general failing in doing so, in closing folders. So we had the documents, and even the documents that were well organized, the folders weren't being closed when the processes were being closed, or when the years where that documentation was being organized for ended, and so it led for the retention schedule not to be counted. So we led and we started doing a sensibilization, or trying to do a sensibilization of the bank, of the institution, in order to make it understand that this had to change and that we had to have some kind of strategy to change the situation. And basically, we try some strategies to create a top-down sensibilization to the record management issues. Firstly, and regarding the EDRMS, we start doing some sensibilization sessions to departmental key users. This had an advantage that was directly to the departments and where the problem was, but it usually had of course, it had a narrower range, and it was usually to an already aware public. We weren't really being able to connect with the general public that weren't so aware of the record management and necessities. But this allowed to correct some punctual issues. We also created some informations directed to top management and to the directions of the departments about the RMS limitations and the risks that could come from it. This was, we were able to create some sensibilization on the risk on information recovery. Besides that, and although this may seem a little bit on the side, we start promoting and doing a lot of internal actions of the archive unit promotion, and even from the historical archive. We did some, we have annually from this time, we have some sessions open to public with called archival afternoons from Banco de Portugal, where we invite people to come and to speak, and we present some of our projects. We had some on the right side, you can see some internal in the building in the Banco of Portugal expositions with historical archive documents. We had we publicated an image with some curiosities about the historical archives to call attention to it, and this started to give some noticeability to the archive and what would happen to, and what was possible to do with institutional memory, and what was it, and what would happen and what happens with information we produce nowadays in the future, and what importance it has. Also, we took some opportunities to call attention to these issues. Of course, taking some punctual incidents that happened regarding the retrieval of information from the RMS, which was harder to do since the organization was not being properly followed. And also issues like the correct indexation of documents was not being followed, which make it very difficult to retrieve them in search, in the search functionalities. We used and we start sensibilizing when in the bank we start to become obvious that we needed we are going to have to upgrade the system, the open text content server, to newer versions. One of the problems we had with the ad hoc implementation was there was too many in-the-house developments over what was standard in that software. And this was a problem because whenever we had a new version of OpenText coming up, it was very hard and it was very time-consuming and very costly to upgrade the ad hoc to that new version. And some of the functionalities we weren't able to use it because we would have to adapt new functionalities from the software to the developments that were in our implementation, and that started becoming a very clear problem and a costly problem to the bank, because we weren't being able to upgrade the system, and we were losing the possibility to use the functionalities, and we were very close to lose the support, the ability from OpenText to give support to our system. So we used this perspective of a need to change. We use it to sensibilize top management for this was an opportunity to review the strategy for document management and to the need of a new governance model, that we need to have some capability of some sponsoring from top management to impose some policy over the departments. Also, coming of GDRP was also used by us as an opportunity, because now retention schedules had a more imperative was a more imperative issue for the bank, because we had more processes that and more kinds of documents that needed to be observed, needed to observe a certain retention schedule, not for preservation but for elimination of documents because they have personal data. And use a process, and I'm sorry for this slide not to be translated, because this is just to give an idea that there was a project in the bank, a global project for which was called BDP Move, for a new digital transformation regarding many processes and systems on the bank. And from these 7 streams that you can see, 2 of them were we were invited to participate and to take head on the 2 of them. One for the creation of the governance model for document management, and the other for the constitution of a structure of functions, of processes in the bank that would lead up to our actual nowadays file plan. And basically this is the need we had, and this is why we had to evolve. We had a decentralized folder structure in the old EDRMS. We had lack of consistency between departments regarding organization, regarding metadata usage, and categories of types of documents in the Open Text Content Server. We had the difficulties to improve and to move to to use new updates for the system. We had a very complex searching process because of the lack of centralized use of indexation of documents. We lacked consistent metadata to retrieve documents, and we also had a big problem, which was in time, and this was one of the reasons why the ad hoc had so many developments, was that ad hoc was used for more than just document management. It was actually, it had a lot of developments and to make for some departments to use it as actually a process management with timestamps and with the specific workflows and the specific commands and functionalities that weren't proper to the software. And we need also to strip the EDRMS from this process management system and applications. So what we had was a system with lack of uniformity, a limitation on control of the system, and also multiple support lines depending on the kind of issue, because we would give support. The archive unit would give support to some issues regarding document management or organization, and then the IT team would give, and then the several teams from IT would give support to different issues like a group and user management, access management, power user support, VIP support, and there was a lot of different support teams for the same system. And what we were achieving was, first of all, a new governance model that would give power to the record managers to impose and to apply a policy and a logic and the rules from the record management to the system and to the bank. A policy reformulation, a clear definition of stakeholders and responsibilities, who had what responsibilities to do what in the system, a creation of a support communication information structure and line. This was very important, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, and this was a very important issue on this. A definition of an access policy also, that was something that there wasn't in the bank. So what who has what kind of access to what kind of information and documents. We had a security clearance policy, but we didn't really had it. We didn't have applied how the permissions were going to be applied in the EDRMS. Not a main rule for it, and of course to integrate the implementation of OTC, the version OTCS 16.2. Also, in this project, there was something else that we had to do, which was the integration from having Documentos and the EDRMS as the main repository for all the official documents from the bank. We needed to have integration with all the systems that created documentation. This is something that for some systems we already had in the old in ad hoc, and now we would have to implementation. We have to make sure that Documentos would be compliant, or these systems would be compliant with Documentos. So this is something that we had to do in this implementation process. Also, mailing the mail management. We in the bank, we have a centralized digitalization system. All physical mail that comes to the bank is centrally digitalized, and what is sent to the departments and to the collaborators is a digital version of the letters. And there are some exceptions that the letters that are delivered in hand, and some treatment exceptions. But in the general terms, this is all the mail circulates digital in a digital version, and the physical version is retained and comes to the archive storage. And also we had SAP that also had to be integrated with the new system. So this is something that we had to think before, and we had to be working, and we had to know we had to guarantee that if it was going to be working when we launched the new system, or if it's something that we could contemplate to do a little bit further. And then all the documentation that was in Documentos and the document management system would also be regarded to the document archives, to the digital preservation system. So one very important issue and factor that we had in here was how to reach departments' involvement. We had to have the departments involved in this project. We had to listen them, but first of all, we had to involve them without having the risk of them taking over again. And so what we did, the first thing we had to establish is the new it was empowerment for the record management, and this was done through the establishing of a new governance model. And then during the strategy definition and the new solution implementation, we were going to listen and to involve members or key users from each one of the departments. And this was also important to establish and with this group of people to be able to establish some standardization of record management in BDP, and also to be able to with them and to communicate and with them to be able to strip the document management system, the record management system, from all the process management applications and functionalities that he had, and to for the IT department to design applications that could answer to those process management issues. So the first thing we did was the creation through a policy, internal policy, of a new governance model. This governance model was had a committee, the document management specialized committee, a committee that sits some key departments for document management, some of the supervision departments, the IT department, the strategy the department, and the department where the archive unit belongs to. And this at the strategy level. This is the level. This is the level. The unit that makes the communication from the technical, from record management to the administration board if it's need, and for decisions to be taken and to be applied to all the bank. At the tactic level, we had a document management system coordinator, the director of our department, and then we had a content manager and the quality manager, which is both rules are from people part of our archive unit team. And then on an operational level, we have the content specialists, and these are people, at least 2 per department, that know the documents that are produced in the department, that know their documental reality, and that communicate with us, and that these are the people that were integrated in the development process. It's as I said, at least 2 per department, 2, 3, 4, depending on the size of the departments. And in total, we have around 50 content specialists. So people that represent the needs from the departments and that communicate with us the needs from the users. And these were the people that we would from time to time would present the ideas and how the system was being synced and what we were syncing to develop. These were the people that we asked for contributes on things like document types, on the workflow needs, and they were listened to the development of this situation. Of these issues. And then of course we have finally the general users of the system. And the way it works is we have at the departmental level, we have the content specialist, these people from each department. They have got knowledge of the document reality. They know, and they also because they work with us in observe and to impose the observance of the procedure of the document management policies in the departments. They manage user groups access to folders, and they give support on the document and the record management system use in the department. Centrally, we have our team, the content manager. We observe the policies, the procedures. We develop them. We manage folder structures, group structures, life cycle, storage, conservation. We give centralized support to the content specialist. We also create tutoring, communication, and collaboration strategies, and in general we communicate directly with the content specialist. Then we have one person, which is the quality manager, that is the document management system quality control. It has some reports to take some indicators on how the system is going, and this team also communicates periodically with the document management specialized committee to give them information on how the system and how document management is going in the bank. We established some policies, mainly 2 policies. One that establishes the CAGD, the Committee of Document Management. its purpose, responsibilities, composition, and how it's going to function. And another a more practical, the document management system, a policy with objectives, with a glossary. We included a glossary for people to know and to have access to some concepts like document series, retention schedule, what does it do, what is it for, the physical or electronic records. So it's a glossary with some terms for people to be able to understand when we talk and when they contact with the system. Also defines the intervenience and responsibilities, who has which role in the system and in the governance model. And it defines an access policy, meaning that it says it has a guideline on how to give permissions to documents in the folder structure. We also establish a series of communication elements, the procedures, file plan, electronic records, physical records, illumination, historical archive. We created guides for all this kind of issues for people to be able to have a more detailed information on it, and also a quick access guide, which is in our intranet page online with some other information regarding document record management. So during the implementation period, one of the first tasks was to create the folder structure that would determine how the documentation was going to be organized. We created it in contact with the content specialists, with the departments, to know what information was, what documentation was created by them, how would it make sense for them to organize it. We give some our insights. We try to normalize that the logics that would apply to document organization, and also the permissions and access policy. So who would have access to do what in each level of the folder structure. This was very important because this is what creates and passes the procedures and the responsibilities to the system itself, because this was the situation that we had in ad hoc. We had a folder structure where in the departments they would be able to do anything at different levels. A lot of people would be able to create new folders if they couldn't find this folder where they thought their documents should be put in, and they would have possibilities to manage access. So there were parts of the structure that could be almost or literally or invisible to us or even to their departments, and so there was there wasn't a very clear strategy on how to manage permissions. And this is what we have now in the system. We have a folder structure. We have the top levels with the main functions from the bank, like supervision or reserves management, or human resources, for instance. And then we subdevelop them into more specific activities, and then to documental series. And all this structure here, only the archive unit has the permission to manage and to give access and to create new structures here. So we have control on how this documentation is created. And then the content specialists may create the folders that organize documentation already inside a specific document series. So no one can create new kinds of document series. So this obliges people to create documents only in a specific folder that says the kind of documents that should be put there. And also, we establish through the permissions, the content specialist can create and can manage a first level, which is the level that determines how this documentation is going to be aggregated by year or by kind of process. And this is very important to the retention schedule, because it's by closing these folders that the retention schedule for the document starts being counted. So next, we had to create, and for that, we had to create an archival plan and retention periods. We started establishing also aligned with the departments, the retention periods for each of the documental series. We also benefit for the fact that not very long before we had, as happened in most institutions, the RGPD definition of the retention periods for documentation with personal information. And so we already had some of these document series already had something that would determine for how much time it should be kept, or how long, or how soon it would have to be deleted. And so this was taken in consideration in building the archival plan. This and other, of course, other criteria that apply to retention periods. And so we were able, and having the documental series, we were able to create the retention periods for them. Some guidelines that we had in the policy that from the document management system were very important to for the departments to accept and comprehend why these rules had to be applied, and why would they have less control over creating folders or attributing permissions to folders, and why we would now have so much control over it. And some of these guidelines was the first one was the definition and the establishment that what was an archive document, which was a document, physical or electronic, that is produced or received during the Bank of Portugal functions, and it is a Bank of Portugal property. It's not the user, and it's not from the person that created it. It's not from the department direction. It's not from the member of the board of the administration. It's from the bank. Every document that is produced in the Bank of Portugal is from the Bank of Portugal, and it has to be organized, and it has to obey to this policy in its organization and storage. And every employee is responsible for identifying, managing archive documents following those rules. And and list every archive documents need to be stored in DocMais, unless if it's something that was checked out by the commission. And so these three guidelines are the base for all the policy structure, and are very important, and they were generally well accepted, and because people understood, and they had the experience with DocMais and with ADOC, and they knew that there was a need to create some organization for the organization on this system. Well, I don't need to explain how the content management work, but this is now, and with this organization and with this these capabilities, we were able to manage and to monitorize and the life cycle management in the system. One last but very important thing that we had to do was the definition of document types and the metadata, because this was very important to the retrieval of information of documentation from the system. In the ad hoc, we had many categories, many types of document that were being used. Some of them were pretty much the same, although they have different names, and they were used without a proper criteria or rule. We also checked that for that most of the documents in the system were falling in the three kinds of types of documents, and one of them, one was correspondence and the other was general document. And so we said that maybe this isn't actually so much important for the bank to have all these kinds of document types. And so we managed to optimize and to change from 22 types of documents that we had in ad hoc to 8 in a DocMais. And this was a very good thing because we were able to define precisely what kinds of documents we had and the kind of metadata that we had to have in each one of them. Also, this required a lot of communication and consent with the departments and with their needs. And this was a very long process, and we end up created a situation that I think pleased everyone. In terms of interface, and as some of you may know, this is what we have now in the new system, DocMais. We were able to integrate the new interface from OpenText Content Server with a smart UI, which is a more app-like kind of a widget-like kind of visualization, and it has cell phone compatibility. We can access this by our app, and also, yeah, so this was also an improvement. There are new functionalities in this interface, and of course it was had to be sold and presented to the institution and to the users. This is the timeline. So the process started in the end of 2019 with the definition of thinking and definition of the access policies and from the rules and policies. And around March 2020, we started the configuration and the definition of structures of the folder structures. I have to call attention for the fact that between March 2020 and the summer of 2020, we were in there was the COVID pandemic, the harder part, and we were all working in our homes in the confinement, and that actually ended up being so until quite late on 2021. Some important aspects here. Well, we had all this process of the defining of file plan and definition of some configurations, metadata, the categories. We were working very close with all the departments and the content specialists, and we started in April 2020. We started thinking on how we were going to sell the new system to the bank. We had users that were very much used to work with the ad hoc. It's a document management system. It's the base for day-to-day work for many of the people. People are used with the commands. Even if there are some issues, people get used to it. And so we had to show and to be able to make a change management that were able to that was able to put people working with the new system with the less shock as possible. So we started working on that strategy very early on. We defined how we were going to start making people think about the change, how we were going to alert people that there was going to be a change, how we were going to start showing how the new system was going to be. And we start defining a tutoring process. We established from in the 2 months before the go live, we start giving to every one of the users of the bank. We gave tutoring sessions. We created tutoring types of sessions depending. We established and we analyzed the kind of usage that people would do in the old system, and we established 4 kinds of users. Very intensive users, or just light users that would just create documents in the system, or very intense users that would create documents, change, use workflows, change attributes in the system. And we established different tutoring models for them. And in these 2 months, we gave tutoring sessions to 1,111. It seems like a fake number, but it was 1,111 users in the bank. So when the go live of the before that, and from June 2020 to March 2021, we had 4 test phases where the content specialists of certain departments, it would, in the beginning, just 3 or 4 departments, and for each one it would increase the number of departments would be involved, would test some functionalities of the system. The first ones were, for instance, on document creation, document move, and some of the workflows. And in phase 4, we were already talking about creating letters, expedition letters, and more complex situations in the system. And we would create we create a test, a guide where people would do certain tests, and also a test registry system where the departments would registry how the tests were doing and what was the outcomes. And we, with the IT teams, we analyzed it, and we made the necessary changes to and we detected the errors that were coming up with in the system as it was being configured. And so in 24 of May 2021, we had the go live of Documentos. We had a first period, and we defined that until the end of 2021, we would have a period of coexistence of the 2 systems, ad hoc and Documentos. In the beginning, people would be able to create documents in both systems, although they would be strongly recommended to create documents in the new system. We already had the folder structures and the places where people would have to create documents in the new system. And so we were, and also through the tutoring sessions, we were making pressure on people to stop using the old system, and trying to understand why people were still using, and if there was some need that wasn't being answered by Documentos. And gradually, and people knew that, and gradually we start shutting down functionalities in the old system is from the end of 2021 until now. Another thing that was happening, and the reason for this coexistence, if I may go a few slides back, was these applications that we talked before that communicate with the document management system, and not all of them were able to be, and this was predicted that this was going to be like that. It was impossible to integrate them all at the same time with the new system. So we started with packages of these applications, and integrating them progressively with the system. While they were still working and connecting with ad hoc, they were still creating documents there. The ad hoc had to be working for that situation. Nowadays, I think there's only just one or two smaller applications still creating documents in ad hoc, but we are very close to have them all creating documents in Documentos. And nowadays, and from August 2022, there's no longer possibility to create documents for any user to create documents in the old system. So now we are fully on the Documentos. This was very important because give people a more easy entrance in the new system, and was able to, in the beginning, when there are some issues to be answered with Documentos, we were able to answer them, and there was like a safety net with the old system. So we had, regarding our go live, we had a strategy for easing the entrance of the users in the system. We had some previous communication before the go live. We create internet teasers for 4 weeks before the go live, and showing a little bit that what was going to happen, and telling the 24th of May we are going to have a new system, and this is how it looks. This is what we can do now. These are the new functionalities what we are going to be able to do in it. And we also published in the internet support materials like a good practice guide, guides and tutorials, FAQs, and the contact list for ECs and GDs, for the content specialists and from the document managers. Also, this information was also being given to users through the tutoring sessions. With the go live in 24 May, we opened the day with some news in the intranet system. So everyone that came to this workstation would put on the computer and would have the news that the new system was on. There was a video from one of the bank administrators, and a very well done for our communication department video publicizing and showing the new system and welcoming the new system. We created a war room for sport with our team and the IT team. It was a war room. This was a little before the end of the confinement, so we were physically in the bank. At the time after all the confinement, it was a strange situation for a little bit. So we were physically in the bank, but we were also strongly through Teams, connecting with everyone in the bank, where most people were working from home. We created a MS Teams groups between each department and our team. So everyone that from day one was feeling some insecurity, some issue would contact, and we would have this team from all of our units and IT team that was related with this process, also giving immediate support to users and to departments and checking problems. And we also had a ticketing system that we still have nowadays to register issues and some errors or difficulties that were coming up. From then on, we created, actually at the time, we already had some video tutorials. Nowadays, we have in our internet, we have 20 tutorials on how to create from step by step, how to create a document, how to send a document, how to action each of the specific workflows. So how to do most tasks in the, or all of tasks in the system. We also have 20 PDF guides for the same situation. If people don't want to have the time in appliance of a video, they can see the PDF guides. We trained 1,200 employees. We gave over 3,000 tutoring hours. We still have our tutoring going on whenever new users come to the bank or a new application is integrated in the system, and if there are users from that application that start having more contact with Documentos, we give them tutoring sessions. We are always ready to give them. We gave over 40 tutoring sessions. There was already 8 meetings from the document management committee. In these meetings, we present what happened in the meetings. Are every about 3 months. So in each meeting we say what happened in the last 3 months in the system, what we are, because from the go live until now, we keep working and detecting things that could be functionalities that could work better or work differently, because it's different when you sync in a project, when you sync in a system, or when you start using, when 1,500 people start using it, and there's always new ideas and some functionalities that could be added up to it. And so we keep detecting what can be improved in the system. From the go live until now, there was already 5 implementation packages with new functionalities. The last one was yesterday. We are still checking the impact in the system. Of course, because we learned from the past, these new functionalities and implementations are all done in contact with the OpenText team. So to make sure that everything we build in the system is built by OpenText and is according to what OpenText plans for the system evolution and the software evolution is going to be. So I think I covered most of it, and thank you for your attention. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you for your presentation. That was I'm very impressed. It felt like I was reading a textbook on archives and records management, because in practice it's never 100% how we see it in books, and I think it's one of our biggest frustrations. So I'm very impressed that everything appears to be 100% planned with management support and everything. If anyone has questions, please put them in the chat or wait for after the next session. Se não estiverem à vontade de fazer perguntas em inglês, podem pôr em português, que eu traduzo sem qualquer problema. So if you could stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
Then we'll have Silvia and Jens. I think that's pronounced correctly. They are from the European Central Bank, and they're going to talk about their EDRMS in a more practical perspective. So Silvia, when you're ready.
Yes, I think Jens is also here, but first of all, good evening. And I mean, we are really pleased to be here, and we move from, we take many of the points that the colleague has already presented. We also use open text, and yeah. So keep in mind in the background what you have just seen. And now we are diving into some more practical implementation, and also sharing also some screenshot of the system, so to see what it looks like in reality, and how also the process are. Jens will cover a bit more the part of the record management, the information management, access, integration, and I will cover then the part of the retention and the destruction. So Jens, it's over to you.
Thank you very much. I will give you a high-level introduction to the system as we use it in Darwin. It's an open text solution, and I will first tell you why we're doing information management at all. Then comes the general overview on Darwin, and I will conclude by showing you some integrations. Actually, I'm not showing them, I'm describing them, when Silvia will then take over for the retention management.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Why we're doing information management?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
It's not on full screen. We see the edit mode of your PowerPoint. I'm not sure if
I
you're
am
supposed
in
to be
full
sharing.
screen. That's
We are not.
interesting. I'll try again. Does it help any?
No, it's the same. It's in edit mode. So there should be a button somewhere for
Saying what?
full screen. I don't remember. I haven't used PowerPoint in so long. Let me see.
O nosso convidado tem que aceitar ser co-anfitrião para partilhar o ecrã.
Okay, you'll need to accept being a co-host. You should have an invitation now, so that you can share it.
I have not received anything. Let's see. Just too clumsy with
Eu vou
Zoom.
remover as permissões de co-anfitrião e eu vou voltar a dar, está bem?
Okay, he's going to remove and try to invite you as a co-host again.
And where should I expect the invitation?
On
Here in the
Documentos.
chat.
It
Eu
should
já
be
voltei a dar.
Okay, he gave you permission again. But we can't see the PowerPoint. I think you just need to click on the bottom right corner. There's some sort of the second symbol or the first symbol after the slide bar. Yes.
This is what I tried, and
it's
I
not
have it
working.
full screen on my screen. Can you see it at all, or is it very
We
small?
can, yes, it's fine. Yeah.
Then
Just
I'll
yeah.
probably have to make you do with it.
All right, that's fine.
Why we're doing information management at the ECB is in our own interest, because we are using the system and we're sharing it with thousands of users, not only at the ECB, but also in the wider context of the European system of central banks, of the national competent authorities, the European Risk Board, and so on and so forth. We are trying to apply 5 principles to our records management. Information is, for us, number 1, a key institutional asset. Number 2, the information is a responsibility of all staff members. So everybody has to put in their stint to information management. Information is shared and protected. Information is well managed, and information must be fit for purpose. But it's not only in our self-interest that we are doing information management at the ECB. It supports our role and our reputation as an EU institution. We are to be accountable to the general public. We have to be transparent towards the European citizens, and we have to be in compliance with the EU law. Data protection is part of that. I'll give you a brief introduction into our system. Darwin stands for Documents and Records Web-Based Information Network. It's the platform that we use to manage our information, to share knowledge, and to collaborate, not only at the ECB, but also beyond, as I have just said. It's our institutional memory and our pool of knowledge. Some historical facts. We started collecting requirements in 2004. The procurement decision in favor of open text was taken in 2005. We launched a pilot in 2006 with 2 business areas. In 2007, Darwin was rolled out to all 17 business areas back then. In 2009, we rolled it out to national central banks. We added workflows and communities and blocks in 2011. And in 2012, we had a major review of access management and introduced the recertification exercise, which is basically a thorough check of all the access rights and security settings, and it's done yearly. In 2015 and 18, we had some major new releases of the system.
Jens, sorry, we're stuck on slide number 4. It's not, I don't think, if you're moving forward, we can't see it. I'm not sure what's...
I'm very sorry for all these technical issues I'm
No
having.
worries.
Silvia, may I ask you to share the presentation and we see whether it works better from your end?
That's a good question, but I try. Let me open it. So, yeah. So, share. Yes. Let me share the right presentation. Okay. And now it's in the share mode, right? It's correct?
It's perfect.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay.
Silvia seems to be having magic hands
Okay.
compared to me. Sorry for
Okay, I
that.
believe we were, Jens, tell me where.
One slide further, 2 slides further, I think it is.
Yeah,
Actually.
here.
No, towards the end. I think I was
Okay.
at slide 7,
Sorry
8,
for, yeah.
9.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, wonderful. Now I hope you can see the numbers really and don't have to just rely on my word. We have a big user base of about 33,000 users. Only about 8,000 accounts are at the ECB. The vast majority of accounts is non-ECB users. And since for 2 years now, we have been having a new category of users which are completely non-ECB and non-ESCB users through Astra. I'm going to speak about the Astra part of Darwin a little later. At the moment, we have around about 40 million documents in the system, and the users that are accessing our system daily are 15,000. And you can see that there has been increases on all of those numbers compared to last year. Can we move on to the next slide? I will use the information management lifecycle as a structure of explaining the system to you. As you all know, it starts by creating or inserting documents, storing them, distributing them, and eventually, that's Silvia's part, disposing of them. So let's have a look at the first two phases. We ask our users wherever possible to use templates. The templates are integrated in Microsoft and should be easily populated with metadata. Let's move on to the next slide. The main piece of metadata that users need to be aware of are the file names, and we try to tell users to be telltale. And if you click once more, makes it very clear. We don't want users to have to open the document to see what actually is inside. Next, please. So once the documents are in the system, we need to think about how they are shared. And the most important consideration for us here is the classification of their security and their sensitivity. We have a system in place of 5 different grades of sensitivity, ranging from ECB public to ECB secret. And we have produced a lot of material, help videos, and tools for users to gauge the sensitivity of the content they are adding. And we rely on the local users and business areas to know which sensitivity class their documents have. Let's move on. The classification of ECB information is basically inherited from the folder metadata. So when you set up a folder, you're prompted to enter security classification, and it is then inherited down to the content of the folder. So the security classification should be considered when you set up a folder, and it is possible for documents, if you move them into a folder, that they don't have the same security classification as the folder, which is not a problem as long as the documents, the contents of a folder, are not higher than, not marked as more sensitive than the folder itself. We allow, for example, a public document in a confidential folder, but not the other way around, a confidential document in a public folder. Let's move on. I would now like to explain to you how access works in Darwin. This is a screenshot from the live system. On the left-hand side, you see in this yellow box that we apply groups to our content, to our folders. A user needs to be in one of the groups applied, and the permission level is very important. You can have a group applied with no permissions, and then the user would not have access. The user is also granted a security clearance, and the security clearance of the user has to match or be higher than the security clearance of the folder. Only then can the user have access. There is a third hurdle that we have built in. It's optional. It's called the supplemental markings, and it works in principle like a group. Only people who have this supplemental marking will see this item in Darwin because it has a supplemental marking called ECB only, and only the people at the ECB will have access. Thanks for moving on. So what I've just mentioned are these 3 conditions. People need to be in the right access group. The user has to have an appropriate security clearance, and the supplemental markings. Our access rights are applied to folders, not to documents. You can imagine that it's bad enough having to recertify the access rights on all the folders, let alone if you would do it on document level with 40 million documents, it's simply not manageable. Access rights are granted to groups and not to individuals. This is also important because our groups are functional, and when people are moving, we just change them from one group to another, and that saves a lot of organizational effort. The access rights are agreed with management and are controlled by so-called key users. Key users have more powers. They can assign, amongst other things, they can edit the permissions of the users. And all of this is done through workflows to be accountable and to collect management approval in a traceable way. And I said before that we introduced the recertification in 2012. So this is a major exercise led by key users. And in that exercise, we are asking key users to review all the security settings and all the access rights and to review the folder structure. Thank you very much. So finally, I would like to mention that ECB documents reach a final state at some point. They are approved and the version is considered as final then. And we would not want everybody who has access to the document to be able to tamper with the final version. Therefore, there's a functionality to preserve documents the way they are, and we freeze them more or less. So people keep having CNC content access, but nobody can change anything about this document. Now, it's very hard to make users remember to finalize their documents. Therefore, Darwin has great functionality that allows us to automatically finalize that records 2 years after the last editing action has taken place. So if you don't touch your documents for 2 years, we assume that it is final. Upon finalization, all documents just have CNC content status, but people can use them and can copy them and start a new document on the basis of what is a finalized document. So let's move on to the next slide. We are sharing documents inside the ECB, but sometimes we have a need to go beyond the groups that we are able to create and the folders that we are sharing in the ECB and the broader family, the ESCB. And for that purpose, we have a special part of Darwin, which is reserved for external access. And we set up users in the system. There is an interface that checks the identity of the user, and we can very easily open a workspace to for procurements, for example, and to people completely alien to the ECB and the ESRB. We also have the same management or almost the same management document management functionalities in this system, which is called Astra. And we've been using it for 2 years, and I think it was a roaring success. Let's move on to the next slide. I'd briefly like to mention that Darwin does not exist on its own. It coexists with a number of different systems. At the moment, we are working on integrations mainly with Teams and SAP. In Teams, we have realized that very often in project work, people have to communicate about the content that they are creating. So we've managed to find a way to link a workspace to a team, to synchronize the access rights of the team with a folder in Darwin. And we allow people to take documents out of Darwin, put them into Teams, co-edit them, because that's a functionality which is not supported in Darwin, and have the documents saved back into Darwin. The integration with SAP is rich in metadata, which is imported from SRP and is displayed as folder metadata and gives you a quick overview of workspaces and of related workspaces. Like, for example, in contract management, you can see the call-offs that are related to the contract. You can see the amount of the contract and how much has been called off and similar things. The next integration, Silvia, on the next slide, is with Outlook. There's a functionality that is being rolled out at the moment, E-Link. It basically allows us to add an email address to a folder. So when you have an email and you know that this belongs to a process that needs to be documented in Darwin in a certain folder, you can add the email address of that folder, and the mail will be automatically saved in the folder, which I find very handy for mailboxes that are shared and have generic content that needs to be preserved in the system. We also have an integration with IMAS, which is a supervisory system. IMAS is a task management system and relies on Darwin as the document repository that allows us to avoid duplication of documents. So it seems for the users if the document is called up from IMAS, but in reality it is in Darwin. Just a quick word on roles and responsibilities. I said that document management is the responsibility of each staff member. We have the key users who have a more advanced role in the system and who lead also the recertification exercise. And we have the managers who eventually have to sign responsible for the content held under their responsibility. The key users are supposed to raise awareness and to be the first line of support in Darwin. They maintain the folder structure and administer the access groups and the permission settings. And they are an important counterpart for IGO because they give us feedback and suggestions for development of the system. And with that, I would like to hand over to Silvia, who's going to speak about the disposition process.
Okay, so good evening. Now I try to share my presentation. Okay, I think it works. And here it is. Okay, now it works. So I will bring you into the retention management world in the application that in the system that we are using. I will start with the journey with the retention policy and the design and the approval of the retention policy, talking a bit about the configuration, which are the building blocks of what then you will hear during the implementation, the actual implementation. So the ECB final retention plan, I mean, I think that I don't have to explain to you what is a retention policy. This is simply the combination of a classification tree, a classification scheme, and a retention schedule. So the breakdown on the function and activities of the ECB associated with their retention period. This has been designed due to for compliance with regular legal requirements. First of all, there is a council regulation, the 3554 in 1983, which imposed to each European institution to have a rule in place to manage their document, and in particular to separate the document which have historical value for those that have administrative value. So this is just the policy, the retention policy. At the top of this, we have other legal requirements, which has already been mentioned. The most important one is the GDPR, and this version applied to the European institution, which set limitation period, storage period for all documents, information which are data protection sensitive, but on the other side also establish derogation where there is historical research need. I don't have to mention the good practice to have retention policies in place, also in view to reduce all the, to maximize, optimize the resources of the institution. A bit of story. The first final retention plan was approved in 2008. So you heard Jens mentioning that the system was rolled out in 2006. So this was a stream working in parallel to define the policy, the retention policy. This was reviewed heavily between 2013 and 2014 to accommodate, to facilitate the rollout of the retention that I'm going then to explain to you. Because the first plan was rather complex. It was based on the three-stage approach, and it was not directly easy to translate into the system configuration. So substantially it was streamlined. It was also reviewed in 2018 to accommodate, to integrate, to update with new function, meaning and the new function and new activities. The most important is the banking supervision, which started for ECB in 2014. Recently, we have reviewed quite heavily again, also in view of the publication. So now you can find on the ECB website if you're curious to have a look at it. Regarding the methodology that we use, this was based on the business analysis. So it was designed in contact directly with the business area responsible, so the producer of the documents. We also analyze the deliverable, the document itself, and the series, and then was a benchmarking exercise with other institutions was conducted. First of all, NCBs, NCAs, national central banks, and national competent authorities, and then other European institutions. And obviously, the good practice and sound principle of retention that are well known in the records management archival community were taken into consideration. Now, looking into the final retention plan more concretely, we have 13 classes, top-level classes, which are breakdown, as I say, in subclasses up to the 4th level, which is the record series. The first 6 classes are about the administrative function, HR management, finance management. The class from 7 to 13 are those operational, so the one that correspond to the mandate and the function of the European Central Bank, from monetary policies, market operation, banknotes production, payment system, and so on and so forth. Here is how it looks like. So now these are important, concepts that then are important. These are the concepts that are important for the implementation. So the class code, the class are identified by a class code. I mentioned the fourth level, which is the record series. Then we have the retention trigger point, which defines the point in time that retention starts counting. And this trigger can be either time-based or event-based. We'll come with the definition later. And then we have the retention period. The retention period that we use are round here, 1 year to 5, 10, and 15 years for, let's say, all the activities and the documentation which has simply a business value. Exceptionally, we use the 3 months and the 3 and the 7 years, but it's just for a few dedicated cases. And then we have the 20 years, the permanent, which are used for documents which has an historical value and are subject to the appraisal. The trigger, time-based and event-based. The time-based is used end of calendar year, is used for all ongoing activities like budget preparation, monitoring, and they start counting, and this is the implementation in the system from the document date, let's say, and we take as the document date the date that we consider the document as final, and this substantially is the date of the latest version that has been edited. Okay, so this keep in mind this definition. For the event-based, the event base is substantially an event that terminates an activity like the end of procurement, termination of the contract or an agreement, the closure of a case, a court case, for example. So in such case, the retention starts counting from this event. This has an implication on the way we have implemented the configuration in the system. And then I'm coming into practice. So from the theory of the final retention plan directly into the practical implementation in the REM module, which is built in Darwin, where we manage all this, the retention functionality. Here are some key concepts that I'm going to explain to you without going too much into technicalities. So we have the REM classification, which corresponds to the final retention plan substantially. So the breakdown of the classes. The RSIs, which correspond to the retention period, how we apply this classification plus the retention period to the folder and disposition searches. Now I'm going to explain to you into detail. This is the classification part. So you will see our the final retention plan breakdown in all the level down to the series, which is the last one, which I show you in the screen. Then we have these RSIs that are the record series identifier. Okay, that is an acronym quite strange, but substantially is designed to define the retention period. As I mentioned, we have these 10 retention periods in combination with the trigger, either event or time, and all together we have 15 retention period apply. These are created centrally, okay, so by like also the classification tree, and is maintained by the division, and particularly by the archives teams. But I will talk later about the roles and the area split. These RSIs define not only the detention period, but they define the rules to manage the life cycle of the document. So they are divided into stages, and this stage something happens, and this action is performed automatically by the system. This is then each RM classification, which is applied as a series. So the fourth level is associated to this RSI, as you see here, a screenshot in the metadata with the metadata and the properties. One important thing is that the destruction, the resize defined substantially, apart from the permanent, the substantially brings to the end of the life cycle, which is the destruction. And the destruction due date is set in the system at the end of each quarter. As I mentioned, from the last edit version, where we have time base, or from the record date, from the date of the finalization of a folder. I will come later for the event base. Okay, so this is, and it's always calculated by quarter. This is how it looked like in the system. Now I would like to recall what the colleagues have shown you before, no? With the workspace, the folder, how the folder are structured, they represent the function and the activity. So substantially is what we have in the system as well. And then to this folder, we apply the classification, this event classification, from trying to apply as high as possible in the workspace. Usually is between folder level 3, level 4, considering the level 0, the workspace, the business area workspace. This means that when we apply to a folder, okay, all the content and all the subfolder which are inside already the same classification. So it's really important that the folder structure is very clear, clean, and the user store in the right place the right information. So because this has an impact on their retention period. Here you have just an example. When a folder is classified, you can see this green icon, okay? And you can see, for example, folder 1 has no icon. This means that it's classified below. While where you see the icon, it means that this is classified from that level. Now you are exactly on. Okay, if you click on the icon, the record details, the record management tab open and explain you which kind of, explain the user, which kind of classification is applied. This goes also to the document, which are inside the folder, get the same classification. Here is how it look like. Again, this green icon that is say to you that there is a classification, and then this tick, which represent the fact that this document has been finalized, as Jens mentioned, at a certain point, either the user or the system finalized the document. And plus, you see also PDF, which is a rendition. So all finalized documents get a PDF version, a rendition automatically, which can be used. Again, if you click either on the icon or the green the tick, you see the record management details. And another thing that's very important when we arrive at document level in such a case, we have also all, if you want to know, the rules that are applied via the resize, the stage, and also what is the due date. In such a case is the 31st of March 2028, the document was of 2018. So, I mean, we are 10, and the retention period was 10 years. Then, saying this, we have this disposition search, which is the last component, which are reports which run in the background that point to the workspace and capture all the documents which have reached the end of their retention period. Okay. These run at regular interval automatically. Usually they run, we have set up to run at the first day of the month. And then in addition to this, there is another disposition search, which we call undeclared declare, which is the one that finalize the document 2 years after their last edit version. Then we take the snapshot, these are just snapshots of the 1st of January, and we use them, we use this snapshot to produce the destruction report, which then are the basis for to go for the destruction that I will explain in the part 4. Now let's go to the retention implementation. So this is the technical part, which is in the module. Now we go to how we have rolled out to the business area. Also, this journey was quite long. It started with the first pilot in 10, and we aim to complete in 2023. We had a bit of delay, and this especially a couple 1 year delay was also due to the pandemic. And we cover so far 24 business areas. We still have 3 to do. Apart from the pandemic, another major constraints that we had over time were the reorganization, because we went through various organizations and also the establishment of the SSM. So this makes the workspace quite complicated, because each organization brings with it also the reshaping of the workspace. And when you reshape the workspace, you reshape also the way retention is applied. We try to design the workspace by function and activities to be as neutral as possible with regard against the organization setup, but to a certain, up to a certain point. And then obviously sometimes, when there are organizations, one new division or one new department take one function and so take over some part of the document. So this trigger some delay, and that we have experienced along the way. This is something that you need to keep in mind if you are rolling out and thinking a process like this, that at the beginning was just to be completed in a couple of years. In the end, it took at least seven years. So that's I think. So how we did it. So we involved the business area, so it's not something that is mandated by us or think only by us, but we try to involve as much as possible the actual producer of this document. So for each business area, there were people, there were colleagues, staff members that were appointed for this project, like this. These were both key users, so they managed the workspace, and a staff member which had some experience with the activities, with the documentation. So we try to find also how to have also the support of the actual expert on the topic, expert on the life also of the department. Then we discuss with them what we call the retention setup, substantially their workspace structure, okay, and the classification assigned to each folder of the workspace. Keep in mind this principle that we try to assign the classification as high as possible for the structure. This brought obviously various discussion, invalidating both the retention period, because what was approved was mostly theoretical. Consider the ECB has started just in 1998 and no retention policy was in place before. So the final retention plan as approved, it was based most of, discussing, but really without looking into the documentation. And now it's when we arrive to the implementation, we also review several retention periods and we create also several series. On the other side, the workspace structure had also to be readjusted. This was validated at division level and then finally approved at business area directorate level, and then we move to the actual implementation and the activation. And we'll come with the activation, that is the go live day. Substantially, we say map, assign the RAM classification to all the folders, create all the disposition searches for all the retention period. And then these are activated, and meaning that the day of the activation, all the documents that are not been edited for two years, they are automatically finalized. And then the disposition searches start to retrieve the document for the destruction. And now we move to the destruction itself. I'm mindful of the time. I try to be fast. So from the disposition search, and as I mentioned, the first of the disposition search of the the 1st of January. We download the result and we produce the so-called restructure report in an Excel format. We have a standard template, and this report we submit by workflow to the business area. We have an approver appointed in each business area at the department level. We try also at the lower level. But it was a bit chaotic to run after each single division, each single approval. So we decided to centralize as much as possible at the department level. They distribute and coordinate internally the review among the staff member, and they have 2 months for reviewing the structure report. If they don't reply within 2 months, we consider them as approved. So we have also in place a tacit approval procedure. And afterward, we perform the destruction. So here a snapshot of how a destruction disposition report look like. You have the list of the document, the workspace location, the classification that is applied. They are divided by RSI, so by retention period. And then we have the decision, which is either approved or rejected. We set the decision by default as approved because we assume that we have done our homework correctly. And so the document should be in the right place, and they should know, the business area knows which retention period is assigned. So in principle, if everything is correct, no review of this report should be required. Then obviously there is always something that goes wrong, so there is room for rejection. They can reject the item. We have streamlined the reason for the rejection in order to avoid to enter again in another round of discussion on the retention period. And we identify these just 5 reasons for rejection. So the document can be in the wrong location. This can happen every time. I mean, we are humans and we are all doing mistakes. So that's natural. The other thing is that the retention period can be wrong in the sense that we need to reassess the retention period because, but there should be a real business case, and there might be some cases. This is true. Sometimes extended most of the time, but there may also be cases nowadays in having shorter retention period, especially when data protection kick in. We have this kind of document that are updatable, that are documents that substantially like guidelines, template that are living document, and they don't need to be finalized, so being captured by the retention. This I park, it's the functionalities of the system. There are other 2 options that there might be these documents that are needed for 1 year for an additional year for operational purpose. For example, we have cases where we have a tender, ongoing. So we have a framework contract, this is over, we need to reprocure the service. But meanwhile, the retention periods of the previous procurement kick in. So in such a case, we will extend while the retender is ongoing for just 1 year. So it's something is going on. Then when they have retender, we can delete the previous procurement. And then the other is obviously the rejection due to litigation, investigation, audit mission, that the business area is the only one who can be aware of this. So is the good reason for rejection. We have prepared a set of guidance for the business area, and we try to raise as much as awareness as possible. But I must admit that this is the tricky part, because the revision most of the time open room for again discussing the workspace structure, the retention period, and to find agreements. So in some cases, not really a smooth exercise. In other cases, and it goes in the right direction. And I must admit lesson learned, that the more destruction round the business area went through, the easier it gets. So the first couple of destruction round are quite tough. When the item documents have been rejected, we have another task to do, that is the apply the whole, that is this nice red end that you see that can be applied either on the folder or on the document. Depends what has been excluded. This prevent during when we activate the disposition search that this document get destroyed. And here you have a snapshot of the disposition search and after the processes look like. So you see that the document, the number of the document that has been destroyed in the green bar, the one that have been not actioned because they are on hold on the red one. Then we have also the error log that we investigate in case, because every time and then there are error, and this triggers sometimes some other investigation in the system components or some feature of the system. And we also prepare a protocol to prove the completed destruction. So just a few numbers also from my side. We have, as you see here, we destroy on average 500,000 items. We call items because it's both directly documents and folder per year. And you will see them increasing over time, also because we have more and more business area and workspace activated, and then because more and more we will have the long retention periods. So far we only destroy the 1, the 5, and the 10, but soon we will arrive at the 15, and the 15-year retention period is the retention period which is commonly applied to the operational part of the final retention plan. So when we arrive really to the core business of the ECB, so this will increase exponentially over time. And just to conclude, 2 words on how we organize all these. We are Information Governance Division. We have several teams, and in the implementation of retention, all the teams are involved. Retention is a task under the umbrella of the archives teams, which I'm a member of, but then we have the record manager, Jens, team, which take care of the workspace and the application of the classification. Then we have the so-called TOSOL team that is the support to the system, which set up the resize, the disposition searches, and perform the destruction, because they only can do with their account. And then we have a support team, internal support teams, the so-called ARM team for the support, which does all the more practical and manual tasks like the production of the destruction report each year. And last year, this year, 2022, we have produced more than 300 reports submitted to the business area. That's all from my side. I hope, yes, I was just on time. And yes,
perfect.
I
Thank you very
sharing.
much. Yeah, we can start the Q&A. Questions and answers. I know there was a previous question in the chat for Filipe. Did you have any problems migrating the information to the new version? Filipe?
Well, we are just now starting the migration from the first system ad hoc to Documentos. Is going to be a project by itself. We are now starting it. The main issue we have with it is because of the lack of organization on the older system, because we don't want to import to the new system the organization problems that we had in the old system. So the first thing we did, and we did it in the last 6 months, we asked each of the departments. We took reports, we did some analysis, and we took reports from the folder structures in the old system and the new system, and we asked each of the departments for their documentation to identify which structures of folders they found that they should migrate, and to where they should migrate in the new system. So as you can imagine, it was 6 months, because it was a lot of information to analyze for each of the documents. They actually complied very well, which also tell us that they understand the need and importance of it. And right now, and having that, we are analyzing and taking in consideration the retention period to be applied to that documentation in the old system. We are analyzing how much is going to be the volume of documents to import to the new system. And now and having that in mind, we are starting doing some defining some prerequisites for that migration process. We are now starting to develop the system, what rules we have to take in consideration in that process. It's going to be, we are just starting, it's going to be a long process. For now, we have access, everyone has access, keeps having read access to the documents in the old system, to the ones they used to have, of course. And we are now advancing on this new project in parallel.
Perfect, thank you. So Eliu is asking Jens to share about any details about the integration with Teams.
Yes, it is a very new functionality that we are applying in certain workspaces. We're looking at some business cases that are particularly likely to benefit from it. It's mainly used in the ECB project, IT projects workspaces, where people have to communicate a lot around the documentation that they are producing. And we've tried to make the process simple to request a team upon creation of a new project. And the main benefit, in my view, is that we create a group that belongs to that workspace, to that project, and all the members of the Darwin group are automatically becoming members of the team, which helps a lot in maintaining in sync the two systems. And the second big benefit is that people can co-edit documents, so they can work at the same time on one document. In Darwin, that is not possible. We know that documents are reserved and only one person can work on it. That was a restriction that particularly the project work was complaining about, the project workers. And it is for now still a bit clunky because you have to check out the document in Darwin. You have to reserve it and you have to move it into Teams. There is a drag and drop function. Once it's in Teams, it can be edited, but there is by default a retention on it of 30 days. Everything that is in Teams is removed after 30 days. So we had to come up with a process to automatically backsave all the changes made to the document to Darwin, which is the real McCoy. In Teams, we have a working copy and it goes back into Teams. And if people do not actively do that themselves, it's automatically saved in a backup folder before it's destroyed in Teams. We are hoping to have a smoother process with the next update of our open text system, but we don't know when this will eventually be happening. I guess it's in the first or second quarter of next year. Yeah, I think this is basically it. The content of the team chats and so on will also be captured in Teams in Darwin upon decommissioning of the team. So at some stage when the project is closed, the content from Teams will be also saved in Darwin. Does that
Thank you very much.
answer your question?
Yes, I think you said yes. Can't hear you. Okay, I think you said yes anyway. Yes, I don't know if anyone has any questions they want to ask. Well, for me, I wanted to congratulate, both organizations, because this is such a huge project, retention and archival. Well, not so much the archival, the records management overall. It's such a massive undertaking, and you guys are doing such a good job, and I'm very impressed. What caught my attention before was when you spoke about Astra. I think it was Jens, and I was curious, how does that work, or how does that? Is it based in Darwin, or is it separate? How does it work?
The folder structure sits in Darwin, and ECB people and ESCB staff members access the workspace through their regular access groups. And we have separate Astra coordinator key users that they are key users with a special training. They learn how to set up Astra groups. Astra groups are different from regular Darwin groups. They are populated with externals only. And there is a process for identification of externals. They have to provide an email address and a phone number and a name. And there is then a functionality. So you have, on the one hand side, apply to these folders Darwin groups. On the other hand side, you have to distinguish. There is the Astra groups, and the permissions to the Astra groups are granted through sharing the folders. And that is, again, a process steered by the key users. They can decide that the folder is to be shared right now, and they just activate the shares. And in the same vein, when the collaboration has come to an end, they unshare the folder and they can move the content then into the core Darwin workspaces. Around Astra has evolved a whole universe of functionality. Probably we could talk for a day about it and not be at the end. Our solutions team has really worked wonders to create workspaces, workspace templates. So for procurements, for example, users just have to click on a template to create a procurement folder, which by default creates 5 subfolders, which can be shared with 5 different providers of services, potential providers of services. And there is a workflow to upload the information to all the folders of the potential providers at the same time. So you just activate the workflow and everything is copied into the folders automatically. There are lots of checks to make sure that the right documents end up in the right folders. It's it's a whole universe on its own.
It is also used for official notification to the counterparty, especially in banking supervision part.
Yeah.
So there is an official account, and this is used for notification of the decision. So that's,
Okay.
yeah,
Perfect.
there is a lot of functionalities.
That's good. So Elio is asking whether the ECB uses Smart View or just Classic View, and what's your experience with either?
Perhaps I can take that question. I personally have felt the impact of using two user interfaces, especially since Smart View was rolled out at a very early stage when it had still some teething problems and it was a fledgling, to be honest. It had very basic functionality and still is not up to speed completely as compared to the classic view. Users are mixed. I've observed that newcomer users tend to prefer Smart View because it's simple, it's very clean. You're not harassed with a lot of icons and functionality, whereas older users with more seniority at the ECB prefer still classic view, and I'm one of them. And it's I find it very difficult to know in this coexistence constellation what is being developed and rolled out in Smart View. So I force myself to sometimes only work in Smart View to figure out where to find the functionality that I'm used to find in WinSpot in Classic View. So it's sort of mind-boggling at times, but users decide for themselves which surface they prefer.
Nice.
Yes.
Great
To
that they have
complement that,
yeah.
the RAM module is available only in Classic View. So that's for example, I work 90% of my time in Classic View, and yeah, that's also as a user, I have difficulties to go to the Smart View, which is only for the end user, but our work is still on the Classic View.
Right.
Maybe,
There are
maybe
some
I
features,
can...
There are some features like the personalized landing page, which is valued highly, and this is one of the points where I sometimes prefer Smart View, because you have a possibility to have a shiny, tidy landing page with all the information that you personally need. It's like your mini community or your mini nexus where you can have all the links that you want. Sorry, Filipe, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I would like just to, if I can add a little bit, we have the same experience that Jens was talking. We have older users, people that used ad hoc more intensively and that were used to Classic View. They complain a lot and they think they miss a lot of functionalities in a Smart View. New users find it more easy to use, and there are some new functionalities that are easy that only exist in the Smart UI. We had a major issue with it though, which is the and in Bank of Portugal, excepting for us that have to have the record management, most users only can use the Smart View. The Classic View is well, they can have access to it, but since there are actually some issues if they try to actionate some workflows in the Classic View, so they have to use the Smart View. We have one issue though, which is the performance. The Smart View is pretty heavy on the performance, and people have been complaining that now the workflows are more less responsive than in ad hoc. And our IT teams are working on that.
Okay. I did make a few notes for Filipe about how you communicate these projects to people, and how to, you know, pass the message that some documents are for permanent preservation. And maybe it's for me because I have I studied abroad, so I use the word record, and in Portuguese we don't have that word. So I was wondering if you have any issues, you know, semantically with, you know, documento de arquivo, which seems a bit vague, at least for me.
Documento de arquivo was a strategy, because very early on when we started implementing ad hoc, we found that was an issue, the language. And it's impressive how much of an issue can be, because we're dealing with the same subject, but the fact that we are and we were talking about implementing more Act 2 in Portuguese reality, and Portuguese reality was with active state and semi-active state, intermediate state, and the historical archives. And the records idea just was hard to stick and to make the two work, and it was very complicated. And then when we have to explain it to our institution and to the implementation teams that came from Germany with open text, and it's complicated to implement, and for all of us to speak the same thing. In the beginning, I remember that I was with my team, with the implementation team in the room, and I would say folder, and folder for me was one thing. For the IT person from the bank was another thing. For the French guy that was coming from German open text was another completely different thing. And it was very hard for all of us to get in the same page. So the archive document was a need that we had to put in and that was why we created the glossary and everything, that we had to create the idea in the bank that there were documents that we created, and those documents had to be preserved or not for forever, and that depending on the kind of business that give them nature. And that wasn't actually, that's not the hard part to pass on. Actually, our main difficulty is to explain people that not everything can go into the historical archives. Because if you ask people, for how long do you want to keep these records? Do you have to keep these records? They'll tell you forever. So then we can't delete it. And I have to deal, like, for instance, if you talk with the supervision department, they'll say sometimes we have documents that they are called by the parliament on inquiries by the parliament a long time after we do it, so we have to keep them forever. I say, but how much is it forever? How long does it pass when the document calls for those documents? Like 10 years, 20 years? Let's say it can be like 20 years. So the retention period is 20 years or 25 years or 30 years. That's not forever, because we have documents for 200-year-old documents in the historical archives. And if we have to keep our records for that time, that there's a lot of effort in keeping electronic documents or sticking to all the, or applying it to all the documentation. So nowadays, and this is why we show the historical archives to people, for them to understand what was historical documentation and what has to be kept and what doesn't have to be kept. And it's still a work in progress, but I think we have been, people are much more sensibilized right now to what is retention than they used to be.
Silvia, you were going to say something?
Yes, I know the discussion because of my everyday discussion. I mean, you are in Banco Portugal, which has 200 years of history behind, so you have something to compare. I mean, it's much more difficult when you come to an institution which is new, with people which start directly from university, so it's not, but they have no clue about anything before. And for them, forever, they have, I mean, nothing to compare with. So, and then I come, how long do you need? With new processes, okay, this was also the challenging when the banking supervision has been established, for example, And then they were looking at me, we don't know. We have no clue what we are going to do. So, okay, so then it was a kind of a negotiation of 10-15 years just to start, and then they will see. So that was the other one of the main challenges, that we are dealing with something really new, not new per se, because I mean the same thing were done at the NCP's level and CS level, but in a different way. And at the top of the thing, we have new legislation, something which comes in every 1 month, plus the technology. And where especially the technology push is really high, and this start to, let's say, the concept of documents start to become more and more difficult to grasp. I mean, that's the thing. So talking about retention is quite a challenge. And that's why when I was mentioning the destruction report and the people who are reviewing, it's every time reopening the discussion on the retention period, which were supposed to be done when we roll out, but every year we are discussing the same thing. So it's really difficult. So even though you think that we are going ahead, but it's really difficult. And indeed, the real challenge is to make this sustainable for the future, because in such a way, it's impossible that there are resources from our side or for the business area who can review and think every time the same the retention period, the review the list each year. So so it's something that needs to change, or the mindset or the way we approach it. That's the thing.
Okay.
I'm sorry. That's an important thing. That and we are still taking our first steps in applying the retention schedule. But what you just said about the effort, we are always very concerned in our process, because everything that we design, even the retention schedule evaluation system, the reviewing system, we have to think, if this is too heavy for the departments to do, this is just not going to happen. And this is a main concern of ours. And it's hard to make sure we can do what we need to do, but having an easy system for the departments to feel comfortable with the result, but also so not to have this kind of effort every year, or just not going to happen.
Of course. I think we could talk about this, forever, for 20 years. I'm sorry, not forever. Everyone in the chat is just thanking everyone for sharing and for the opportunity and giving you all congratulations. Okay, we have a new question. I'd like to question about digital preservation on these apps. So how does digital preservation tie in with the EDRMS? That's a whole...
If you want to start,
I take it. We have not mentioned another integration that but we have an integration with the digital preservation system, which is still in the childhood phase. So we hope that maybe we can report you soon, because we have just rolled out the project, and now we are starting to roll out. How it ties in with the system. When we do we call the mapping of the REM classification, we map not only the 1, 2 year, 5 years, so what is going to be destroyed, but we identify, and one is the most important thing that we want to identify, what is the permanent. So the same way that we have the disposition search that retrieve the permanent document, this is used then to migrate to the digital preservation system. I close it here, but substantially retention cover both the destruction and the digital preservation. What is identified with permanent, then via the same goes in the digital preservation system. So this is
Well, we in Bank of Portugal, we have a Centera storage center server, and ad hoc was connecting to it in order to put the permanent preservation documentation and also the long-term preservation documentation. But at the same time that we also used that server Centera for our digitalized historical documents, the ones we have in Arquivo online. They also have our storage there, the digital formats. But now the Centera, Banco de Portugal just decided to renew that kind of storage. So we are implementing a new one when we are still in the phase of migrating what was in Centera to this new system, and we are just now also still in the future to do the integration of this permanent conservation system with Documentos. So we also in the beginning of it.
Muted, sorry. We have another question about integration with digital repositories. Ana, consegues parafrasear ou explicar melhor? I'm not sure what they mean. I'm asking them to rephrase, perhaps. So you were talking about the digital preservation software. What about archives? Is there an archival software on top of this digital preservation, like a catalog, or how do you manage?
We do have one. We have Arquivo, which is widely spread in Portugal and used, and we have our online catalog there. Up to now, it only has physical digital versions of physical documents. They are digitalized. They are accessible online. You can see documents, but we don't have yet documents that were generated in the EDRMS and passed to Arquivo. So it's still in the future. We are going to have, of course, when we have historical documents, historical electronic documents, they are going to Arquivo, of course, but we still don't have any.
Okay, so Anna is talking about integration with Roda. I'm not familiar with the subject, so
we are not integrated with Roda. Maybe something that we can look up in the future, but now until now we don't have it.
Okay, we're past the time. Thank you all for being here. This was very, very interesting. I'm sure everyone agrees. And again, congratulations on your projects. This is amazing. I think we're all learning from you, and particularly from your experience. I think we all could use experience sharing and not so much the theory, though it's of course important, but I think it's experiences that we learn the most from. So from the ECB, Silvia, Jens, if you need any certificate that you were here, please let me know so we can organize that for you. And I think that's it for us. So thank you all for being here. Obrigada a todos.
Thank you.
Thank you, and a nice evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Obrigada.
Boa noite.
Obrigada.
Boa noite.
Thank you.
Obrigada,
Bye.
boa noite.